What is going on, my Jet family? Appreciate you guys, like always, tuning in, being here, being part of the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. You got me, Harrison Glazer. You guys know who I am. Here to talk to you guys about the Jets. But I got a guest for you guys today. He's a really big Jet fan, knows his stuff. He was on the Weapons Hot podcast with us. Had some great takes talking about, the draft. We were there draft day. Had a lot of fun. I'd love you guys to say hello to Blake.
Hey, everybody. My name's Blake. Big Jets fan. We had so much fun talking the draft, and just wanted to keep it going with, what's going on with mini camp and the position breakdowns. And, I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, no problem. So, it was a lot of fun. We were together on draft day, and you were there, when everything was going down with trading up to get AVT. I freaked out.
That was a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah, man, I lost my mind. Remember we were talking about that. And I was saying how, if the Jets wound up trying to get AVT, they'd have to trade up because I felt he was a top 15 prospect, and that's what he is. The dude is legit, and we got him. And Joe Douglas doubled down and said he was a top 10 guy.
In the fall, he ended up falling out of the first round. We really wanted to get him in the second round, and we went with Elijah Moore. And my head was spinning at that point. But then, I saw all the breakdown for Elijah Moore. I'm like, we maybe, I don't know what I'm talking about. We got a huge steal right there. So I'm actually really excited about that,
Yeah, man, no, Elijah Moore is awesome. Yeah, we've gotten into him a lot. We talked about the wide receiver. He's going to be a great addition. I mean, one of the best slot wide receivers in college football, period, last 2 years. Lit it up at Ole Miss. But, yeah, man, getting a guy like Vera Tucker, trading up to get him, because we're going to be talking to you guys about offensive line. That's what we're going to do today, get into some offensive line analysis, talk about, give you a breakdown of different positions, maybe show you a couple of highlights of some guys last year, like Becton, my guy. I'm excited. But, yeah, man, with AVT, I felt like, we had to trade up to, that top 15 or so round. I felt like he was going to go to, the Chargers, the Cardinals, and that's why I thought that's where we had to trade up if we were going to get him. And right when Joe did it, I freaked out. We were all talking, and I looked up, and I was like, oh, my God, because I knew it. I knew in that moment, that's why I was trading up.
Where he would trade up, you're like, I'm thinking Minnesota, and, and then we traded with Minnesota. He's like, what happened, I think it was because Justin Fields was off the board, so they're like, all right, might as well trade back,
Yeah, it makes sense. That's the whole point. People forget that, it depends how the board falls, how people go. We've had that many times where, unfortunately it didn't work out with either one of them, but it happened when we got Leonard Williams. It happened when we got Jamal Adams, where talent falls because of one reason, because someone reaches for a quarterback, so many things. Talk about talent falling. It's a little off topic as we were going to talk about, offensive line, but talk about talent falling. How about the fact that Hamza Nasruddin was taken with a 180-something pick? This kid was projected to be a potential second rounder.
Yeah, they were Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah. They're like, that might have been the most value-based pick that the Jets got. He's a sideline guy. He'll be on the field majority of the snaps, and he's extremely fast. And exactly what we needed to fill that linebacker role, So he's going to fill that safety linebacker hybrid. And he's actually more excited, per his words, to just focus on one position, one that he was really good at as a linebacker, and he can kind of play in the box a little bit. So he's even really excited himself. So.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And same thing, with Jamie and Sherwood. That's Douglas has got it, man. Those are when you think about it, those are the Keanu Neal types. That right when he took those picks, I thought safety. He announced his linebacker. I realized the dude's way beyond me because I wasn't even looking at safeties. I was doing, my analysis.
Jamie Sherwood S next to his name, what?
Exactly. Mini freak out. But yeah, the thing is, I'm a teacher, so I try to dig into as many prospects as I can, but I don't have all the time in the world.
And everything.
Yeah, I'm not Daniel Jeremiah. I'm not getting paid the big bucks to get out there. So I look into what I can. So I try to focus on the positions of need for the Jets. I hadn't looked into the safeties as much. I didn't think like that. I'm not Joe Douglas. The joke I make, and it's kind of true. It's and if you want to maybe mention something on it, but I feel like Joe Douglas is playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers. That's just what it feels like.
100%. He executes the trades with the most two guys. We traded with New England Patriots last year. When have we ever done that? We traded all of our good players to Pittsburgh. All these great teams, Kansas City, Steve McLaughlin just won a Super Bowl because of Joe Douglas, So, yeah, he definitely knows how to pull the trigger, and I love that. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, You don't have to convince me. I mean, Joe Douglas, I've been saying the guy's a great GM. Like, the guy's got it. I was saying after that first draft, like, this guy is it. Like, after so many years of just hating everything that had, like, loving my team.
And your head, you're like, oh my God, I love the move, you know?
No, yeah, and it was so tough in the past because you're like, I wasn't as much into it as now, but I did my own fair share of eval. So I had guys I like, and then, without getting into it, what McCagnon does, but it's
like, all right, if we're not going to address the offensive line, like, who's this guy? Maybe he'll pan out. Clutchio Assembly, it's just a shot in the dark. And, we were all just trying to be hopeful. Now it's like, all right, we have a plan. We're picking the right guys. We traded up to get his guy, a blue chip player. It's going to be next to Mekhi Becton for years to come. Absolutely love it. Couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. So like I said, we're talking about offensive line. So quick, TJ brought up, he was saying that he thinks it's stupid how the media is trying to make the trade up sound like a bad move. I didn't want to knock anybody, but at the same time, I was thinking like, anyone that was saying it was a bad move, I couldn't get it. Like, that made no sense to me.
Because we lost the third round picks. That's the only thing I could see.
But I mean, it's trade value. It's what you get. Like, you gave away 2 third-round picks, but you got the ability to get a guy like Alahia Vera Tucker. Like, I mean,
on the trade value, and we actually paid fair market value. We paid like 10 extra like draft points. Out of like, if you broke it down, we played exactly equal value. We didn't overpay. Like San Francisco to trade up, they overpaid. Like, we actually paid complete equal value, and we got the number 1 guard in the draft.
Yeah, and we traded up pretty high. Like, that's the thing. You move up. People don't realize first round. They think, like later rounds, it's not the same. When you move up even a couple of picks in the first round, it makes a big difference. It's
you should have been at 14, 15 to begin with. So.
Yeah, that's where I thought he would go. And Joe said this guy's a top 10 talent. So I was saying, when you think of a guy like that, you got to look at like when the Colts took Quentin Nelson, like when the Washington team took Brandon Scherf. Like, that's the level of interior offensive guard you're getting.
Not to mention, he dominated at the tackle position last year too. So he played both positions. He's not going to play tackle, but in a pinch, if we absolutely needed to, and someone can only play guard, we have that luxury, which is fantastic. And a lot of the people that we brought in, undrafted free agents too, and our entire depth chart, I've gone through it, and almost everyone plays the second position. And that's kind of Joe Douglas's mold for offensive linemen, versatility. So.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. 100%. I agree. Yeah. And, just going back to the trade, like, people were saying it was a bad move, that it doesn't make sense. I get it because you're giving away 2 third-round picks, but anyone who's seen Vera Tucker play, like, going through what this kid brings to the table. In 2020, Alahia Vera Tucker had a pass blocking grade of 92.8. Like, that's near perfect. In 2019, he only allowed 6 pressures. He was the number 1 pass blocker and the number 1 run blocker of all Pac-12 guards. And in his whole career of 927 pass blocking snaps, he's only allowed 3 quarterback hits. Like, that's insanity numbers. Like, I feel like the people that don't like the trade, they maybe haven't seen him play enough, or they don't get what he is. And I was telling everybody, if that's the way you feel, you're going to learn soon. Like, you're going to see quickly what this kid brings to the table. And the rhetoric is going to change. It's going to go from, instead of, we gave away all this for that guy, it's going to be, that's all you gave up. Like, that's all you gave up to get Vera Tucker.
And he's similar to Mekhi Becton in his style of play. Like, he wants to throw people around. He wants to put them in the dirt. Like, he's aggressive. Mekhi Becton's aggressive. And that side, they're just going to dog people all day. And I love that. You got to be a little violent on the offensive line. Like, you saw Mekhi Becton shutting down Aaron Donald and double teams last year. Now with a little help, like, we had Pat Elflein next to him, and we actually looked pretty good. Now we have a number 1 grade blue chip prospect, Elijah Vera Tucker, next to him, who had a great college career. So I'm excited. I think he's going to bring a lot to the table.
Yeah, man. And like DJ says, he brings it up as well, saying, I see no issue. It's going to change. The people that feel that way, they're going to see what he brings to the table. Like you said, they're going to see the ability as, in college, like, almost a perfect pass blocker. And that's the biggest thing I love about the kid. Like, he does everything right. He literally checks every box. But his technique is, like, flawless. Like, he's the one that you want to videotape and show kids. Like, this is how you're supposed to look. Like, this is how your technique and form should be. Like, yeah.
He was the first guard to go. He was the highest rated guard in the entire draft. And it's a very deep offensive line draft. And we got the best guy available. I mean, you can't be happier than that. Like, yeah, those third rounders would have been awesome. Maybe we could have got a good corner. But bottom line, we had a huge position of need. We wanted to protect our quarterback, and we locked it up. So, I mean, you can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, man. So a lot of people have been speculating to where he should go. I think the majority of people like the idea of putting him next to Becton, putting him on that left side, because we have question marks on the right side, and we're going to get into that, talk about how we feel about some of those guys there. But that left side, man, with Vera Tucker next to Becton, that can be elite.
Yeah, that's where I would put him personally.
Yeah, so we talked all about, Vera Tucker. Again, those who haven't seen him, they're going to see. They're going to see really quick what this kid's able to bring to the table, the skills that this kind of kid has. But going on to, pairing him with Becton, Becton's been amazing. We talk about Becton for a second. I don't understand last year how he didn't make the Pro Bowl. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
even as a rookie.
He should have made the Pro Bowl. I think it was just because he just played on such a bad team, and it didn't really generate into wins. But I think if we win a few games this year, I don't see him not making the Pro Bowl. Quentin Williams should have made Pro Bowl last year, So
Yeah, no, the whole Quentin Williams was one. He was one. A lot of Jets got swiped last year. Maybe that they talk about the Adam Gase effect. Maybe that's part of it. It negates you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree.
That's like 1,000 points against you. They factor you out.
Yeah, people like Salad. They're gonna like Salad players. Like, I think we have a fighting chance. Because if you ask anyone that actually grades offensive lineman, Mekhi Becton was easily the best offensive lineman, at least the best offensive tackle. He didn't play a guard position. He played one of the hardest positions to play, left tackle, and he stood up pretty well for a rookie that had almost no training camp, no off season, with COVID. All brand new to everyone, including the country and the Jets, with second-year Adam Gase. I thought he did very well. So.
Yeah, and that's a good point you make, man. People forget. Well, maybe not forget. I mean, it just feels like this last 2 years has been a lot longer. So it seems like it, yeah. But last season, you're right, there was no preseason. Even guys like Tom Brady, experienced veterans on a new team, said that week 1, week 2 felt like the preseason. So yeah, I love Becton. I mean, that was my guy. Like, this was the guy I wanted. Like, everyone, was talking about. I remember back in the draft last year in 2020, everyone was talking about Andrew Thomas. Wirfs was a big name thrown around. Jordan Willis was. I wanted Becton, man. This was my guy for a while. I loved the behemoth.
Like, how could you miss that? Like, he was like this monster of a man, just running so fast, just so like angry. I loved it. Oh man.
He's a beast. Yeah,
he's a beast. The only concern, I hope he could stay in the field 4 years to come, because he did have to come out a couple games, but he was right back in. He wasn't out for a long time. Offensive line is a gritty, hard position to play. It's probably the hardest position outside of quarterback, in my opinion. And he was only gone for a game or two, and that's why I'm glad we got some depth, because the one game he was out of first was Chumadoga came in. And Chumadoga was out after one more play, and then was like, all right, now who's going to play tackle? So we brought in some undrafted free agents that hopefully can play the tackle position and compete for a spot as well. So.
Yeah, definitely, man. And yeah, you made some good points there. Him getting hurt a little bit, but I honestly chalk it down to the medical staff. I'd felt that way for a little while. You mentioned Osamil in the past. When they brought him on, he was supposed to be a really top-graded guy. And when he got hurt, I mean, the whole situation was really weird. Like, I can't remember any time where, like, a player says that I don't want to go and I'm not ready. And the medical staff is like, you can go, you're ready. And the player's like, I'll sue you. Like, I can't remember that. Like, usually players want to play.
The signs of his fines that they would have on screens, like, around the other players. Like, a really weird Adam Gase concept. Like, to announce to the players, like, yeah, we're finding him for medical reasons, and there's dirty laundry out there, everybody. I thought it was really strange. So, of course, he sued. Luke Falk sued too, so.
Yeah, and that's why with Becton, I mean, I felt like I'd done the research, and I'd looked into, that kind of an injury, and almost inevitably, it says that kind of an injury will lead to a tear, especially if you stress it, continue to use it, and it made sense that he's in for one game, out the next game, in for a play, out the next play. They never allowed him to heal. And the answer, I love that. Remember Gase's answer? Well, he wanted to play. Of course he wanted to play. I mean, he's a football player. Of course he wants to be on the field. Like, we remember back in the day, like, the dude would get knocked out. Wayne Corbett would have 4 concussions in the game, and he's like, I'm ready to go out. It's like the medical staff has to step up. Yeah, the medical staff has to step up and be like, no, you're not okay.
Exactly, like 100%. That's why even Saltz said himself, he's like, I love Joe Douglas's team. I love their scouts. I love how we brought in, new medical and training and strength and conditioning people. We brought in that Olympic trainer, Duisi. We got rid of, I think Latin was his name, who's been, there for way too long. Way too long. He's been there for at least like 15 years or something. And we had a lot of issues with him. So we cleaned house. We brought in some new staff, and, they're aware of it. They're aware of it. And at least we're going to pay more attention to it and have more involvement. Because even Saltz said, he's like, it also depends on what you eat, how the culture is, everything. And we want to be the most prepared possible. So I think we're actually have a good eye on that now, which is great.
Yeah, so that's going to be a big thing because, like you mentioned, with Douglas bringing in the new medical staff, that was huge, cleaning house in that way. A lot of even in the positions where you don't always see doctors. It was like doctors across the board. So that was exciting. Hopefully that makes a difference because that was definitely a big problem. So we talked about Becton, that's my guy. Like, I think this kid has the potential to be really, really special. Like, people are still saying, he needs to lose weight. Like, I'm good with Becton the way he is. Like, that kid, like you said, is massively fast, massively agile. He's very strong. He's got excellent technique. For a man of his size, his ability to get his positioning, his footwork down, to be always in the proper place, I can't believe it. For a man of his size, it's almost like I feel like the guy had to take ballerina classes or something. Like, he's nimble out there.
He was shutting down Aaron Donald last year. We like, that was the game that we lost to Trevor Lawrence swing states. We were like, oh my God, we're gonna beat these guys. Look at Mekhi Becton. Like, Sam, is actually a time to throw. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, that was my favorite part of the game. I'm like, Mekhi Becton is literally shutting down Aaron Donald. And if he can do that, I think we're going to be in a really good position going forward.
Yeah, man. So I'm excited about that. I mean, Becton is our guy. He's our left tackle. He's the blind side protector of the future. We got him. And now we got
our first JD draft pick.
Yeah. And the first offensive lineman taken in the first round since 2006. We have to go back. It's like it's not rocket science to figure out the positions the Jets are lacking in. Our positions not addressed in the draft.
We better draft an offensive tackle. We better get the right guy. And I'm sure if the Giants can repick, I'm sure they would take Mekhi Becton over Andrew Thomas.
If they could now, yeah.
They could now, yeah. So I think
but they didn't.
We didn't move. We didn't play the board. Well, I mean, we played the board, but he fell to 10 or 11 or 12 was our pick that first year, and I was over the moon. I was like, we got the guy.
Yeah, man, I'm with you, but yeah, so that's exciting. I'm really excited about Mekhi. He's been my guy. But like Joe said, there were all those other guys, but that was the guy I wanted. Like, Mekhi was my guy. And Joe said the same thing. He was like, forget. Because they asked him. They were like, oh, if Thomas was on the board. He's like, no, this was the guy I wanted. We got him at this pick. It was great value. So, yeah, so that left side is going to be set. We have him. We have Vera Tucker. We talked all about him. That's going to be an excellent combination for hopefully the next decade plus. Elite blocking ability. Now we get to the question marks, and that's kind of the problem. Like, we look at this line and we're like, okay, Mekhi Becton, a Joe Douglas pick, first round, awesome. Vera Tucker, another first round pick, another Joe Douglas guy, awesome. Then, so we get to the center position. I'm curious your take on Conor Mcgovern because I'm not the biggest fan, but I know a lot of people are.
I mean, I'm not the biggest fan either, but I'll tell you what, who is a big fan? Joe Douglas, and he really made a point to not upgrade that position via free agency. We could have got Lindsey. We didn't even put out an offer for Lindsey. He wants to see McGovern play in this scheme with this help around him. It wasn't all on McGovern. The whole offensive line was pretty bad, I would say, except for Mekhi Becton. I thought George Fant held his own. And there was flashes from the guards here and there, but like just a flash in the pan. But McGovern in general, he got better as the year went along. Like, if you looked at Pro Football Focus, his performance did get better over time, and the offensive line didn't really have an offseason. It takes time to gel. I'm willing to give him another year. I'm willing to give him another chance. Me personally, I was all about the Creed Humphrey, sweepstakes. and I would have just upgraded that.
Me too, but that was my guy. You remember, I was screaming from the rooftop. Do you remember? For like months, I'm like, somebody listen. Everyone's like, you're wrong. I'm like, I know I'm not. Everyone's still like, he went late. So that doesn't mean anything to me. Like, cerebral center, done. Like, mic drop. That's it. Like, I don't care that I passed on.
Twitter following, and when the draft ended, I'm like, Harrison, don't tweet about Creed Humphrey. Maybe they forgot. Maybe he'll be available. And we went Elijah Moore, and I was like, what? Like, all right, like.
Yeah, I didn't want to go wide receiver high, but like you and TJ were saying, I stopped and think about it. You're like, okay, it's Elijah Moore. Like, again, it was a guy that shouldn't have been there at that pick. Like, people that haven't seen him, I've been tweeting.
Top 20, so.
Yeah, I've been tweeting videos about him nonstop, facts about him nonstop. If you hadn't seen it, check it out. This kid is the real deal. Like, he is going to be – he has so much potential.
A.J. Brown crying with him, like, oh, man, like, you're the – it's like you kept me in my, in my place. They're saying that Ole Miss might be the new, like Clemson factory of wide receivers. Like, DK Metcalf came from Ole Miss. So maybe we're on to something. And, goes DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, the next guy, Elijah Moore, So I'm about it. At first, I was like, I would have went Creed Humphrey. I was with you all day, but what do I know? But now I know that Elijah Moore is really talented. And I'm actually really excited to see him play. So.
Yeah, I always liked him, but I just didn't think we needed wide receiver that high. So I was just But when you take him, you instantly fall for all those traits. Like, there's so many things: multiple 200-yard games, over 1,700 yards in the slot, the most of any guy in the slot. Period. Never dropped a red zone target. Like 25 red zone targets, brings all of them in. He
can route run. Like, people can't even touch him. And I love that angry, dominating play. Like, and he's one of those wide receivers where he'll get back to you, just like Denzel Mims a little bit, and that's when we need some toughness on the offensive side of the ball, because we've always been tough defensively and we've never had a tough offense, and now we're starting to get the right dogs, as Jamal Adams, today, in this building. So I like that.
Yeah, man. And you mentioned, with the Moore pick, the fact with Ole Miss being this wide receiver factory. It's not a bad point because you mentioned Metcalf, you mentioned A.J. Brown. There's some good talent coming out of. I mean, there's always been good talent coming out of Ole Miss, but it seems like specifically a wide receiver lately. That's been a nice influx of talent.
As a minded coach, like he's developing wide receivers the right way. So maybe we got to steal. But back to Conor McGovern. I'm gonna give him another year. Why not? Like we have time. We're slowly building this thing the right way. I think I'm less worried about Conor McGovern than I am about some of the other positions, honestly. So
I'm still a little because I'm a big. We've spoken about it in the past. I'm a big offensive line guy. Like, offensive line matters to me. Like, that's what I loved about Joe Douglas. One of the first things he ever said was that football is won and lost in the trenches. And I'm like, that's what I say. I'm like, I love that. Offensive line philosophy, defensive line philosophy, counting in edge rushers. He fixed the defensive trenches in the draft. In free agency. So that's where I figured he would address offensive line again in the draft. He did. He gets it. Conor McGovern leaves me scratching my head because signing him at the time made a lot of sense. He was coming off a year where he'd had over, I believe he had close to like 1,000 snaps and only like 1 sack allowed. Like, really great numbers coming off a great year. The money made sense. Yeah. But last year, he allowed 6 sacks. And that's not 6 sacks because of bad guard play. That's 6 sacks solely because of him. So with me, as I said, I'm a big offensive line guy. Blindside tackle is important, but your center, kind of like I mentioned with what I like about Creed Humphrey, that cerebral ability. Your center is like your second quarterback. Like the Jets' best years.
Sam Darnold just scrambling, like to the right side, to the left side, back and forth. Like he wasn't the most sure-footed quarterback to begin with. So.
Yeah, which is true. But you look at all, the Jets' best years. You go back to with Nick Mangold and Sanchez, Kevin Mawai, Joe Schmidt. You can go through years and years of great centers. Fields. There's just so many centers that were great for the Jets.
We have a really promising undrafted free agent center that was the #1 rated prospect coming out of high school. So maybe
Yep.
we can develop him the right way. Who knows?
Yeah, I actually, that's funny because I tweeted that out. I literally was reminding everybody, keep in mind, Tristan Hodge was the #1 rated center out of college when he committed and went to Notre Dame. I mean, he decides to transfer to BYU. He's not getting playing time. He's had, unfortunately, injuries in 2019. And crazy enough, he got COVID last year, wound up with pneumonia. So he's had limited playability. Could have affected his draft stock, went undrafted. But the kid's a beast. Like, I was going to get into him later on. Like, I like the ability of Tristan Hodge. Like, I like what he says anyway. Like, you look in his profile.
I love his energy. He's just like,
yeah, that exactly. Yeah.
He's like really smart, talks really quickly. He had amazing things to say about Zach Wilson. Obviously. And he was someone we were targeting. I really feel we were targeting. Obviously, we needed a center. We didn't draft one because we went in other positions of need. But he is the one undrafted free agent center that has some real interesting promise, and I could see him being on the roster for the next couple of years, honestly.
So I want to come back to him because it's interesting where he could play, but back to McGovern for a second.
Sure.
The way I'm thinking, I mean, again, trying to put my Joe Douglas hat on and try to think like maybe he's thinking, because I love the Becton, love the AVT. Joe Thomas did too. I mean, what's better than, with Joe Thomas' seal of approval? One of the best legendary offensive linemen said these were the guys he would have taken. So you can't beat that. But with McGovern, I figure if I'm Joe, the way I'm looking at it is, okay, you can't cut him this year. He's making a lot of money. And though he was pretty atrocious for a lot of the season, he was pretty good for some of the season. So, which he was. He was pretty good for some of the season. But exactly. Yeah, he was. People say he was top 10. That's a big misjudging fact, I feel, with Conor McGovern. Like, a lot of people like to throw out, he was a top 10 center from week 9 on. He was a top 10 center from week 9 on. Yes, but he was a top 10 center with an under 70 PFF rating. Like, you have to kind of look at it on scale. Like, it's still not great. It's not bad, but I don't even know if I'd put it in the category of good even. Like, if you're in class, if you get a 60, I think. What's up?
I mean, we're kind of stuck with him too. I mean, who else could you put in that?
So that's kind of, I thought Joe was going to go with a center in the draft, but like I said, going back to those numbers, you get a 69 something on a test. That's not great. No. So it's not the best numbers. The other weeks they were really bad, and like we said, 6 sacks allowed. We talk about centers. There shouldn't be any really for the center position, or most there should be 1 or 2 or 3. 6 scares the hell out of me for a center. So the way, I guess, if I'm Joe, I'm looking at it like you said, we're locked in money wise. We got AVT on the left side. If we get good guard play out of the right side, then if the center struggles, then we know it's McGovern, and we move on at the end of the year, and we get a center next year. That would be my guess in the logic that he's going in. I guess give the guy another year with better guard play, see if that improves the situation.
And he's brought in people that can play center to a high level. I don't know, but Dan Feeny has some experience at center. That could have been a reason. Conor McDermott has some experience at center. But Conor McGovern's the guy. He's the guy. He's going to be the guy. And hopefully he has a better year with some better pieces around him and maybe a better scheme fit. Like you saw CJ Mosley opting out. Maybe it was because of COVID. Maybe it was because I don't want to play with Adam Gates. Maybe he wasn't motivated. You saw Alex Lewis fight with Adam Gates. Maybe he'll just, feel a little more positive about the offensive line of the team he's playing on and might fight a little harder and, really give it a good shot. I don't know. We got to play the games, but he has a year to prove it to us. He has a year to prove it to getting another contract if we do let him go. So we're kind of stuck with him at this point anyway.
Yeah, that's how I think. I would imagine Joe was looking at it. There were a lot of other offensive linemen I liked later in the draft. And I love the guys Joe got. Like we talked about, getting safeties. Oh, they're linebackers. Oh, my God. They're Keanu Neal. They fit perfectly. We get a guy like Michael Carter at safety. Oh, he's going to play slot. He runs a 4.3 40. This is intriguing. So yeah. I love every pick. Like, I can't think of what I don't love. Yeah. But he didn't take an offensive lineman. He could have taken an offensive lineman later. Plenty of guys that were available. Plenty of guys that I liked. I mentioned
stacking up offensive line personally because there were just so many great prospects that were falling. I felt like the board was just falling where we could have just really done a whole big buffet platter of offensive linemen, which I would have been fine with, But obviously there were more other team needs, and we have a huge draft next year. We got our left tackle, we got our left guard, we got our quarterback, we got like a #1 wide receiver, that plays in the slot or could play on the outside depending. And next year I think we'll probably go cornerback, and we'll probably still go offensive line. So.
No, I agree, and you nailed that. I think that's the way you have to look at it. People forget that sometimes. It's like when the Sam Darnold trade happened. Remember, and people were like, "If we get a second round pick, that'd be awesome." And then we get a second round pick, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's next year." So what? So what? But it doesn't matter that like next year, the whole rhetoric's gonna be like, "Holy crap, Joe Douglas got a second round pick." Like next year's coming. It's not like it's forever away. And it's not like it's never gonna come.
Carolina, and we're gonna improve that pick position even more.
But yeah, that's what Douglas took a 6-year deal. Saleh took a 6-year deal, the year for the long term, and fixing that offensive line. Yeah, I could easily see Douglas in the first round going with another offensive lineman next year. Maybe a center if McGovern doesn't work out. Maybe a tackle if Fan has a bad year.
Just be competitive, win more than 4 games, move in the right direction, establish the culture. And next year, with all those, we have 10, 11 picks. I think we'll be in a really good position to make a playoff run next year. Definitely.
No, I agree, man. I 100% agree. But that fact that there were so many offensive linemen that you mentioned that had fallen in the draft that I liked later on that he didn't take tells me, like you were saying, that he has faith, that he believes that McGovern can be the guy and turn it around and play better in this new scheme, which, again, that's also something people do mention, that McGovern has done better in this kind of scheme in the past, as opposed to the system he was in last year.
I've heard from beat writers that at the Jets facility of practices that Joe Douglas is very high in Conor McGovern. And he made a point to not try to upgrade that position, to not cut weight, because he's very confident in him. And if Joe Douglas is confident in him, like he's confident in Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera-Tucker, maybe not to that extent, but if Joe Douglas is confident in him, then, that makes me a little confident in him. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt this year. But he only has this year for me to prove it.
Yeah, and I'm with you in that. Like, Joe's my guy. I mean, I trust the process. I really do. I hope he plays well. I'm very nervous. I hope he does. But like you mentioned, with great center play, I got my Nick Mango jersey on. Like, that's the kind of centers I want. Like, when I look for centers, like, that's what I like. That's what I loved about Creed. That's what we always talked about Creed. So that's why, for me, not going for Corey Linsley, everyone was saying, because Douglas didn't go for Lindley, that meant he wasn't taking a center. I didn't think that way, because last year, Linsley had an all-pro year and got paid like an all-pro. He was like one of the highest. He might be actually the highest paid center right now, but if he's not, he's one of the highest paid centers. But if you look at his years before that, he was kind of sporadic. He had some years in the 60s, some years in the 70s. He wasn't as solid and consistent.
All Linsley. He was not even on our radar, apparently. So.
Yeah, but that's what's funny. People thought that meant McGovern. To me, that meant no. One LaFleur called another LaFleur, and he's like, no, just stay away.
You're better off.
So I felt that, and then because and when we passed on other centers, like I thought Gabe Jackson, like, oh my God, this guy is available. He's one of the best centers to ever play. Like right now, he's one of the best modern centers. We don't trade for him. I thought maybe we were going for a center in the draft, but all of that, now that we haven't, shows he has faith in McGovern.
Joe Douglas trade low draft picks for players. I haven't seen him trade, any second rounders for a player. He's more about acquiring picks or trading like a 7th rounder or 6th rounder for a player. I've had yet to see him do that, but I'm not saying he wouldn't. I've yet to see him trade up into the first round, and there we go, and he does that. So I feel like we haven't seen all of Joe Douglas's cards yet. I feel like we've seen a couple. But I think Conor McGovern is our center to stay. And I think the real competition is the guard and, the depth behind the tackle position.
Yeah, and that's what we're getting to now, because that's where we're going to. So the question mark right now, or the biggest question mark on our offensive line, is right guard, because we don't really have a starter for that position. We have a couple of guys that could potentially be starting in that position. So a couple of names are guys like Alex Lewis, who I'm not a fan of whatsoever. Don't like his technique. I feel like you said all the time, I feel like he wins with power, wins with strength. I don't like him. I really would love to see him cut. A guy like
with Gase, honestly.
But what's interesting is you look at a guy like you look at a guy like Greg Van Roten, they're like opposites in every way, which is kind of funny. You have a guy like Van Roten, who's a sound technician, great footwork, good technique, fast feet, but he's not the strongest guy. He can get dominated by a bull rusher, which happened a lot last year. We saw that a lot. His technique was good, but he got blown through. Then we see a guy like Alex Lewis, who's a bull, but he's off balance more often than not. Like his technique pisses me off. Like I feel like a guy just shifts one way and he'll fall over. Like it just makes me crazy.
I think he's a backup that we paid because we really needed a guard at the time.
Yeah, we traded for Alex Lewis. I mean, at the time, it seemed like a good trade. And I don't know Douglas because, again, you can't know who's going to make it and who's going to not. At the time, it probably made sense. He was high on him.
That 3-year contract might not have been the best move, but we can get out of it. I don't think he'll honestly make the team this year. So.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of money. I mean, I think it's like 5-something million due, and I think it's almost none of it's guaranteed. So he's definitely, if there's one cap casualty that's like the biggest one, it's him.
I think he's on the bubble.
So the two of them, they're interesting, but neither one is great. They're both mediocre options, and they're both older. Neither one is a young guy. So with Van Roten and with Alex Lewis, we know what we have. Same thing with McGovern, and that's kind of like the way I felt, just going back to that for a second, how we said he was bad for the majority of the year and good for a little bit of the year. I figure he's also not a young guy either, so I don't look at, I don't see anywhere for drastic improvement. I hope I'm wrong. But
we gave the most guaranteed money of any of those free agent signings from last year.
That was his big signing, yeah.
So McGovern kind of has to say, we can get out of the Lewis contract, we can get out of the Fant contract, we can get out of the Van Roten. The Van Roten contract's almost nothing, honestly, too. It's probably the cheapest contract of those three. Fant isn't going anywhere. But, I think Lewis would definitely be a roster cut. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would keep Van Roten as depth just because he's a hometown guy. He actually grew up a Jet fan. And that's why when we signed him, I was actually really excited about him. Because I remember when he was with the Panthers for many years, he was average. I mean, he wasn't great or bad. He was average. Which is for, the way our offensive line played in 2019. That was fantastic. The idea of having average after 2019 was like amazing. So I was excited about when we signed him. Figured also he was a hometown guy. He was a local guy, a Jet fan. I thought that would get something out of him. So I would keep him as depth. Like I still think there's something there. I like his technique. I think he's got good. If anything, he could coach a younger guy on technique potentially. Plus he's a hometown Jet fan. I'd send Lewis running. But the two guys I really want to see the competition from, you mentioned one, Tristan Hodge. The other one I really like is Cameron Clark. I'm really high on Cameron Clark. I don't know if you want to mention, but those are the two guys that I think have the best chance to hopefully get this right guard spot. And I'd like to see one of them get the right guard spot.
A little bit, I want to see what he brings to the table. All I've seen is highlights from his college year. I didn't see anything from him last year, except for the fact that he's really tight with Mackay back and off the field. But I'd like to see something from him. He definitely was one of the higher draft picks we used for offensive line. I think third round or fourth?
He was a fourth round pick.
Fourth round. Yeah, that's a decent pick. Then we brought in other guys like Dan Feeny, Corey Levin, Jimmy Murray, and we brought in 4 undrafted free agents. So there's going to be competition, and we already have Conor McGovern. I think Conor McGovern will make the roster. But Cameron Clark, I expect to see something again with Cameron Clark. He has to. He didn't play all last year. He's got a full offseason to prepare. I want to see what he brings to the table. I would love to see him win that spot, too. That would be fantastic. I think there'll be a lot of chemistry there. I think he has more tangibles and higher upside than Van Roten or Lewis. But I haven't seen anything from him yet, so I can't really give him the position right now. So.
Yeah, of course. And that's one thing you're going to see in a Robert Saleh offense or Robert Saleh team ever. Nothing's ever handed to anybody. Everything's always competition. You earn every spot you get. And just because you're paid doesn't mean you're keeping that spot. Like, he's shown it in the past. I'm trying to remember. I think it was a linebacker, but I remember he's benched a couple of guys in the past for not playing well. But moving back to the offensive line position, I'm a big fan of Cameron Clark. I really liked that pick when we took him. And you mentioned before what offensive line, it's one of the few positions that still takes time to develop in the NFL. It's not like, like a wide receiver or DB that's thrown in nowadays. So with offensive linemen, that's why the guys that are NFL ready, the guys that are ready to go day one, that's why they go so high. That's why you get a Mekhi Becton, Vera Tucker. You have to trade up for a guy like that. But a guy like Cameron Clark, guy you get later in the draft.
They still need some time. It's probably, like you said, it takes the most time to develop because you have to really say you're going into like a gun, fight, with your guys or something. Like, you have to trust these people. Like, you have to trust them. You have to trust them to protect how you play and your style. And it takes time to gel. It takes really time to learn each other's weaknesses and strengths. And you got to get some playing time to get there.
Yeah, offensive line, like we said before, it's the trenches, man. If it's war, it's the front lines. It's where the battle converges. Like, fans don't get the difference in quality between an NFL caliber edge rusher and like a college edge rusher, like a Carl Lawson to like an average guy in college. Like, there's no comparison there. So when these guys come to the NFL, there's a major learning curve. Again, we said that's why the top guys go high. When you get a guy like Clark, you don't want to rush him in. That's why I was hoping you wouldn't get rushed, because when you rush offensive linemen in, they develop bad form, bad technique. They lose their confidence, which is a bad thing with offensive
We
linemen.
brought in John Benton from San Francisco, and he was one of their biggest coaches that we stole away. That Tristan Hodge is bragging about. He's like, I love this coach. He's part of the reason I signed with the Jets, regardless of Zach Wilson. We took one of San Francisco's best offensive line developers, and he's on our team now. So, Jason's staff is gone, so everything that they learned last year is pretty much going to be recycled, and we're going to teach a new technique and new scheme. But I think, like, with the guys we brought in, the coaches, that's going to play a big role on if these guys get in the field, if they develop properly. And Joe Douglas made it very clear that he wants to draft and develop his players, and that's the kind of ball club we're going to be. So Cameron Clark has every position to succeed this year if he wants to.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, you build a team through the draft. I've been saying that for a while, and people are like, oh, in free agency, why isn't he getting this, getting that guy? It's about the draft. He had a hell of a free agency, the last one, but it's all about the draft. That's how you build a team. That's how you get success. Yeah. So Cameron Clark, he took him for a reason. He even said to Cameron Clark on the call, I'm taking you for your nasty streak. And that's what if you watch Cameron Clark in college, man, he puts people down. He's like a smaller Becton. It's crazy. This kid plays tough. He plays ferocious. He takes it personally, plays with that chip on his shoulder. He's got, like you mentioned with Vera Tucker, with Mekhi Becton, that tough streak. Like, he likes to finish his blocks. And I'm telling you, like we said, we talked about offensive line taking time to develop. I think he had that year. He had that time on the practice, on the bench to learn, to get better. I'm excited to see what he could bring in this training camp.
Injury again with like a hamstring or something. Do you remember?
I don't 100% remember. I believe if I had to guess, I'd probably say it was a minor-ish injury, and they kind of used it to taper him off and keep him in the background for a little while, if I had to guess.
Okay. Because now we have a whole new medical and conditioning staff. We have new offensive line staff. We have more depth. So he has a much better chance to succeed and develop and be on the field this year. And he's definitely fits that Joe Douglas mold, like AVT and Becton, where they're mean and nasty, and that's the kind of guys that Joe Douglas wants in his line, because everyone on the defense is coming after the offensive line. They're you're just getting mauled. You're getting attacked. So you have to maul. So you have to attack. So I like the style of offensive lineman that Joe Douglas wants. He wants mean, nasty guys, and that's what I want. Let's keep Zach's baby face that everyone talks about nice and pretty. All right, let's keep him upright. Let's have him go.
That was a good one. I like that one. That was a good line. I like that, man.
All good.
But you're 100% correct. Like, everything you just said, that's exactly it. The kind of offensive lineman Joe Douglas likes. It's the kind of offensive lineman I like. It's one of the reasons I love him so much. Like, that's why I like the Cameron Clark pick. I literally said, I would go crazy for Vera Tucker. I just figured there was no chance in hell he's falling to 23. Like, I just figured if you're going to get him, you're going to trade up.
A playoff team. What did we have? A good offensive line.
Yeah, great offensive line there. I mean, left to right. You got Ferguson. You got Moore, you got Mangold, you got Cologne. Woody was there for a little while.
Depth too, And
that's it. Yeah, people forget offensive line is one of the most important things.
It's almost won, So, we're building it the right way. We're bringing in guys. It's not going to happen overnight. The key thing is just to develop some of these guys, because we can get out of any of these contracts. We have draft picks. But we have to just take care and teach the players that we have on the roster the right way, so we have healthy competition. And, maybe we won't need to spend a draft pick on a player next year because we already have somebody. So who knows? But it's exciting.
Maybe, but like we've been saying, man, there's a reason we got a whole podcast dedicated to offensive line. It's what Joe talks about. It's what I talked about. Telling you guys out there, offensive line matters. That's the message today. Offensive line is key. Football is won and lost in the trenches. It's always how it's been. It doesn't matter. So many things change. The quarterback position's evolved. Running back is not the same as it used to be. Used to have that guy, the Curtis Martin, the Jerome Bettis, the guy taking all the carries. It's a passing league now, but the offensive lineman will always matter. That position will never change.
Not to mention, we're going to have a huge running offense this year, especially to help out our young quarterback and to have the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible. So these guys are going to have to be athletic. They're going to have to move. They're going to have to play a lot of different formations and be healthy and durable. And that offensive line plays a huge role in the running game. We had we signed Le'Veon Bell before we got any offensive linemen. How did that work out? Now we're getting offensive linemen, and we're bringing in some running backs, that will play, but they're not going to be superstars that are just going to dominate. We're bringing in guys that are going to be a scheme fit, and we're going to really impress some people. But you have to be athletic, and offensive line is required for a strong run game.
Yeah, one of the reasons I'm excited about Cameron Clark is, we mentioned it before with guys like Alex Lewis, Craig Van Roten. They're older guys that are okay. I mean, I would kind of go and Alex Lewis is okay as a stretch to me. I kind of want to say he's bad. I kind of just want to say Alex Lewis is bad. Greg Van Roten is okay. They're not great guys, and they're older guys. I really want to see what these young guys got, what they can bring to the table.
Get last year.
They have
somebody in the building, But this year, I think we're going in a different direction.
Yeah, but that's what I want to see what these young guys got. So Cameron Clark, that's one. Another one you mentioned before, Tristan Hodge. Tristan Hodge played at BYU with Zach Wilson. I mean, who better to keep the guy upright than the guy that's been keeping him upright for the last 3 years? I mean, he plays like a beast. This dude, he had some injury history in the past. He transferred. He had COVID last year, so that shook his stock a little bit. But one thing that's never been questioned about this kid is his toughness and his strength. Like, this kid is a bull.
And Joe Douglas, he is known. He made his name for undrafted free agents. Like on the Ravens, the Eagles, a lot of those players played vital roles for depth and the reason why he has 2 Super Bowl rings. Now, we brought in 4 undrafted free agents. We brought in Tayden Saltz, we brought in Tristan Hodge, Grant Herman, and Parker Ferguson. He gave Tayden Saltz a decent amount of money. He's from New Mexico. This guy's huge. He's 322 pounds to 6'5". Now Tristan Hodge is 3'10", 6'5". So he's bringing in some big guys that are going to compete, that play multiple positions. Now Tayden Saltz, he had a 96.7 pass block efficiency as a junior, and he went up senior year 97.7 pass block efficiency. He plays right tackle and he plays guard. So we're also bringing in some depth that will compete with Chuma Edoga, someone that if Becton or Fant falls out, we can shift ADT to left tackle, and someone can play guard. So, he might not have drafted more than one offensive lineman this year, but we brought in 4 guys, and we signed 3 free agents: Jimmy Murray, Corey Levin, and Dan Feeny. So there's going to be competition this year.
Yeah, man. All those guys you mentioned before, depth is important. It's hard for guys to always stay healthy, especially if you look at our offensive line over the last 2 years. Injury's been a big issue, and guys that can come in. That's been a big problem. So you mentioned a guy like Dan Feeny. A lot of people were like, oh, he wasn't that great. He was a decently high draft pick. I think he was like a 3rd round guy.
Games. A lot of these other guys.
You beat me to it, man. That was exactly what I was going to say. No, you're exactly correct. That's exactly the point. It's durability. He's played almost every career game that he's ever been in, and he's been active for almost every game. Like, even if he's not the best guy, that's depth. That's key.
Our other 2 free agents, Jimmy Murray, 0 games with Kansas City. Corey Levin, 1 game with Tennessee. Dan Feeny, whatever you want to hear on the the Facebook forums, he played 57 games. Okay, so he can play the position at the NFL level, and he's depth. He's a position that he'll be available for us. So.
And he was a 3rd round pick back in I think it was back in 2017, believe, give or take. He was supposed to be really good. I mean, so far it hasn't translated out, but again, I definitely think, like you said, he's going to make the team as depth for that durability. Guys like Jimmy Murray, Corey Levin, Herman's, they may not make the team, but it's competition. Competition breeds better play. Competition breeds success. We don't know. You mentioned, all those undrafted guys. We mentioned Hodge a little while ago. You mentioned, Saltz. You mentioned Ferguson. You mentioned Herman's. There's a lot of guys. Joe Douglas brought in some offensive line.
Like Joe Douglas, he shops his players by a certain mold. Like our linebackers and cornerbacks, he wants them to be fast. Our offensive linemen, they're all 6'5" to 6'7". They're all minimum 300 pounds. None of these guys are undersized. None of these guys are just athletic. These guys are big guys. So if they can play, if they can develop, they have a good shot to be on the field. Because it won't be their measurables that holds them back.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And actually, that's why I'm popping this up for a second, because it's actually funny you mentioned that, because I was going to show the same thing. I was looking at the Jets depth chart roster a little while ago. And like you just said, it's not just that. We talk about Joe having a type. So we said, at that slot cornerback position, we have 3 guys right now: Guidry, Michael Carter, and Brandon Eccles. All 3 of them, they run a 4.3 40. The slowest of the 3 of them ran a 4.34. That's not a normal sentence. The slowest run ran a 4.34. They have similar measurables. We look at this offensive line right here: 6'4", 310, 6'4", 306, 6'7", 300, 6'4", 306, 6'4", 307, 6'6", 305, 6'8", 310, 6'4", 306. You notice the trend literally all the way down. So that's just an interesting thing, to consider. Like you say, he definitely seems to have a type there on the offensive line. All those guys are minimum 6'4", somewhere in that 6'4" to 6'7" range, minimum 305-ish, 306, 308. So it's interesting. And so we talk about all those positions. I'd really like, in my opinion, again, for that right guard position, for the competition to come down between Hodge and Cameron Clark. That's what I'd really like to see. I'd like to see the 2 of them, 2 young guys.
Even though he hasn't played yet, just because of his draft position. And I just think he is probably the more NFL-ready player right now. But, he's not – I haven't seen him play yet. So hopefully we have 3 preseason games this year? Hopefully they play a little bit.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. That's going to be the biggest spot. The right tackle is set. We know who the starter is. It is a bit of a question mark. So we look at George Fant. He's not bad. He's not bad by any way, shape, or form, but he also wasn't good. He was average to below average is the best way to put Fant. He was average on his best days, below average on his worst days. But the thing with Fant is it was only his second year starting as an offensive lineman. He's still a decently young dude, and he's incredibly athletic. For an offensive lineman, he's arguably one of the most athletic offensive linemen in the NFL. The dude could line up as a tight end. So his ability, and Mackay, I just imagine the 2 of them going downfield, making blocks. It's exciting to think about.
Not to mention, he's a Joe Douglas guy. He was the first free agent signing we made that year, and everyone was like, all right, where's the splash? Who's going to be the guy? And it's George Fant, what?
Everyone's reaction was the same. They were waiting.
What does he know that we don't know? Who is this guy? It's look it up. What's it?
Everyone's expectation was here, and then he brought it in at here, and everyone was like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's George Fant. I've never heard of this guy before. Seahawks. That doesn't make me feel any better. But I thought he held his own. The right tackle is not going to be a position where we overpay, and that's clearly why we didn't draft Penei Sewell or or anything like. Not that he was available, but we're not going to overvalue the right tackle position because there's only so much money that can go around. So George Fant fits the the financials for a right tackle. We can definitely upgrade that position, but he's a lot better than the pieces that are behind him. So, going forward, George Fant is my guy until someone can take that job from him or we upgrade the position next season.
Yeah, and I was thinking about upgrading in free agency. I don't know if you guys were on Twitter. I was championing. I was like, Alejandro Villanueva is available. Mitchell Schwartz is available. Either one would have been a huge upgrade to me. Yes, they're much older, but they're significantly better tackles. So you mentioned, maybe not going in the draft. I wouldn't go against Joe Douglas. I mean, he knows the key of offensive linemen. If Fant is only okay next year, plays the same like he did this year, I wouldn't be shocked if he took an offensive tackle decently high next year in the first or second or third round.
When Creed Humphrey and then Tevin Jenkins. I thought that would have been awesome.
Yeah, and that was again what shocked a lot of people. They were, like we said, there were a lot of offensive linemen still on the board. Yeah. yeah, there were a lot of offensive linemen still on the board with those higher picks, with those later picks that everyone liked. So it shows he has faith in these guys. And I think the biggest thing to come down to again with Fant was it was his first year actually starting. Before that, he'd been playing a swing guard and mainly swing tackle. Sometimes I think he only played guard once or twice. So mainly a swing
tackle, and then we moved him to right tackle. And then he played the right tackle the whole year. But he was like, yeah, I'll happily move for Mekhi Becton. Like he clearly drafted a left tackle. I know my role. So yeah, we'll do another year. All these guys that we picked up last year, and we gave them all pretty much 3 years. So we can get out of them this year, besides McGovern, or next year we can get out of all of them. So
yeah, well, Fant is cuttable now. That's why I honestly thought a guy like Schwartz or a guy like Villanueva could have been an interesting option, or if he went some way in the draft. Because he is cuttable, but I think he's obviously him and McGovern are getting another year.
Replace him, like we don't barely have a backup tackle at this point, So
that's exactly the point. Yeah,
he's the best right tackle we got at the moment.
Yeah, he's the best of the situation. So I mean, he could get better. And again, same thing with McGovern. I mean, neither are young guys, so I don't expect massive strides. And that's why I mentioned you before. I'd really like to see Cameron Clark or like a guy like Tristan Hodge or even another young guy make it onto that line because the potential is so much greater, the ability of what they can turn into. The older guys, they tend to be what they are. I mean, sometimes every once in a while you do see an offensive lineman really come on in like his 6th, 7th year, but that's not the norm. So with Fant, again, I think the key is, like we said, it was his first year starting. And another underrated aspect with Fant, the team gets to choose their captains. And the offensive line unanimously chose George Fant, a first-year guy, as their captain. That tells me, that they believe in him and they like his leadership. They think he knows what he's doing.
Make the other players better on the team. Mekhi Becton was the closest with George Fant of any of the offensive linemen last year. And George Fant probably helped him develop a little bit, or at least help prepare him for the NFL. And the crazy thing about this year is, there's also another game. There's 17 games, so we're gonna need, as much depth as possible for the guys to stay healthy because they're gonna get beat up. We're gonna play aggressive. We're gonna play with all gas, no brakes. So we're gonna need all the help we can get. And right now, George Fant has a starting spot. McGovern has a starting spot. Who's gonna play on that right guard spot? That's the real question.
Yeah, no, that really is the question because, like you said, we know Fant's going to be at right tackle. We know McGovern's going to be at center. How they're going to play next year is a question, but them being the starters isn't the question. That right guard is the question. Who's going to be there? We do have the veterans. They could wind up earning the nod, potentially. I would hope it would be Van Roten over Lewis, would be my hope. But, again, we got a lot of these young guys. You mentioned all the undrafted guys you brought on. There's about 4 of them. My favorite one on the list is Hodge. He has shown in camp. They've been talking a lot about him. But what I like about Hodge, man, just you mentioned his personality. You look at his Twitter profile. First thing it says, superhero enthusiast, son of Odin. I'm like, that's my guy. I'm like, this dude gets it. Like, he's a cool guy.
He's a headband guy, too. I saw a Superman headband while he's, like, running at the combine. But we also brought in Tayden Saltz, and he was a right tackle. So now we might have, someone to maybe push George Fant a little bit or at least be a backup, because we can, backups and offensive line extremely, extremely important because those guys get beat up and they get injured all the time.
Yeah, we talk again with the undrafted guys. So just for the people out there, if they don't know who we're talking about. So the first one we mentioned was Tristan Hodge. He was an undrafted offensive lineman, interior guy out of BYU. Another guy Joe Douglas got that Blake was just telling you guys about is Tayden Saltz. Tayden Saltz was an offensive tackle out of New Mexico, has really good measurables. He also got a guy named Parker Ferguson. He's interesting because he could play kind of anywhere on the line. Parker Ferguson has played left tackle, left guard, right guard. I wouldn't be surprised if he can't play center. This dude has shown positional versatility. And let's not forget, exactly, he was on the 2nd-ranked rushing attack in college football with Air Force back in 2019. So that's another potential right there. And then we didn't even mention Grant Hermans. Grant Hermans is a guy, offensive tackle, out of Purdue. This kid was a team captain, 4-year starter, big dude at 6'7", and a state champion high school wrestler. When I hear that, I think like Nick Mangold. When I hear state champion high school wrestler.
Now, can you do me a favor? Can you look up the money who we paid the most? Because I think
I don't think I'll look it up right now. I don't think we paid them that much money. I have to look it up. Hold on.
well, who got paid the most? Like 'cause I think
I don't
Tayden
think
Saltz.
they paid that much to really that many people at all. Hold on. I know Yabo.
You know who he's more serious about.
I'm not actually. Let me see if I can bring up.
Yeah, not the tight end position though. Even though we're all really excited about that undrafted free agent.
Here we go. Details about the undrafted free agents' contracts. Let's see what we got here. Okay, or maybe not. Guess doesn't want to tell me how much they spent. Not sure off the top of my head. I mean, there were a lot of other undrafted guys. They brought in other offensive linemen, like, we mentioned Kenny Yabo. He's an exciting. Oh, here we go. Money. Okay. So it looks like they all are going to be making about $2.5 million over 3 years. Honestly, they all. This is Joe Douglas, man. Joe Douglas. I want to show this for a second. Give me a sec, because this is just. I'm glad you brought it up, because it's just Joe Douglas freaking being Joe Douglas. Like, it's beautiful, man. So you look at not favoring anybody, not picking anything. You look at this here. It's like equal. He paid everybody like identical money.
Wow.
Like it's literally almost identical down the board. This dude is fair.
Whereas last year, like when we brought in Bryce Huff, like we paid to get him,
Which rightfully so. I mean, I talked about him a while. Like I was big on Bryce Huff when he played for Memphis. Loved him in the Cotton Bowl. I could not understand how that kid went undrafted. Like I've been saying, and me and Bryce actually, I've spoken to him a bit. He follows me because I've been following him back when he played for Memphis. Like I wanted him in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. I am just shocked that kid went undrafted.
Yeah, and he's gonna have a role this year. And then we brought in the tight end, Ole Miss.
Kenny Yabo.
The 4th grade. Yeah, Kenny.
Yeah, and he's exciting because next to Elijah Moore, he was the best receiver on that team next to Elijah.
Too. So, I think they'll be duking it out. It'll be interesting to watch.
And we need another receiving option because we got blocking options in Croft and Wesco, which is important. When you have bad offensive line play, you need good blocking tight ends. But when it comes to receiving tight ends, all we have was Herndon. So I was excited by that, man. Yabo could push Herndon for the start.
Yeah, he said he played 3 different schemes at his first college, and he was mainly a blocker. So he transferred because he wanted to show his pass catching ability. But he said the fact that he's played in 4 schemes and had 30 years predominantly blocking, that he can definitely block, but now he can also highlight that he's a pass catcher, and that'll make him a little versatile for our team.
Yeah, I just can't believe I'm glad you brought it up because there's no favoritism here whatsoever. This is basically literally like equivalent across the board, except for the first couple that got guaranteed. So if we went by guaranteed money, it looks like the most money went to Kenny Yabo, which makes sense, and Isaiah Dunn, which Dunn's an interesting option because Dunn, if I'm remembering correctly, Dunn is the one who played wide receiver, I believe, that translated to corner. There's potential there. Like there's a lot of speed in him.
Well, yeah, the money
you mentioned
who is favorited. So if they're all getting the same, then no one's really favorited, I guess.
Yeah, and you mentioned the edge rushers, Huff the last draft. That was my guy. Loved Huff. This year he got Hamilcar Rashed, and Hamilcar Rashed is a little maybe undersized for a 4-3 defensive end. But I thought Frankie Luvu had what it took, and he was about the same size. I try not to get too caught up in measurables. Measurables aren't a big thing with me. But Rashed, man, this kid's a 1-year wonder. But in that 1 year, he put up 14 sacks and 22 TFLs in 1 year. That's crazy.
Yeah. I think he's one of our premier undrafted free agents as well. So we'll see how he pans out. We're definitely going to have a big rushing attack this year with Lawson and Curry, and I'm so excited. It'll be fun. It's going to make this offensive line a lot better too. So
definitely, man. Yeah, like we said, with those undrafted edge rushers, Huff, I really like his potential. People talk about, Franklin Myers potentially playing on the edge there. I say don't sleep on Huff. Man, Huff and Lawson could be one hell of a combination. And then we can see what Rashed could turn into. I mean, he had an unbelievable 2019.
And they're going to develop behind actual studs, and that's what they need. So it's gonna be good. We're bringing in the right players to push these other players. We're gonna have a lot of depth, a lot of competition, and that's something we've always lacked as a team is depth. We've always had like, all right, one great player at one position, and he goes down with all that money we guarantee to give him, or he's injured, or he just wants to cash in on that Jets money, and then we have no one to play behind him. Now Joe Douglas is trying to fill the reserves up, bring in these guys, bring in some competition, see, let them duke it out. And Salah's not going to just hand anyone the position. He's going to have full say over the 53-man roster, and we're going to have a lot of the 53-man roster dedicated to offensive line. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But I really hope for you and me that Cameron Clark does win that position, and then we cut bait with Alex Lewis. We let Van Rotten be the backup and see where the chips lie with the rest of the guys. So.
I'm with you, man. That's my hope. My hope is, like you said, the left side is going to be solid. You got Becton and Vera Tucker there. That is just set. That is going to be elite for years to come. It's exciting. We get to guys like McGovern and Fant. I hope they're going to have good years. I hope they play better than they did last year. That right guard's a question mark. We have a couple of young guys who can get that position. But as of right now, we have two really good offensive linemen to be excited about, and we're a little worried about that right side of the line. So I'm hoping that it pans out, and I'm hoping that right side winds up playing a lot better than we fear it might be.
How good would you be if we didn't draft the left guard? Then we'd be scrambling to figure out who's going to play there. Like, I feel so much better that we're worrying about literally one position on the offensive line.
Oh, I would have been shocked if Joe Douglas didn't take an offensive lineman in the first. I would have been like, I thought it was going to be Cree, but I would have been shocked if he didn't take an offensive lineman.
Me too, but I'm just throwing out the scenario.
Yeah, man, it's exciting. It's great stuff. But yeah, like always, we had a lot of fun chatting. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for being part of the podcast.
Yeah, anytime.
You want to tell the people where they can find you? I don't know if you want to do a shout out in your social media.
Yeah, I mean, you can follow me on, Twitter, Blizzard Blake, or YouTube. Yeah, I'm more just here to support my friends, Harrison Glazer, who, we got to do a video together on What's Been Taught a few times. There's some really great people over there. TJ DeSimone, Kevin Jackson, Jets by Jimmy. I love the live rounds crew, the Jets Talk, Jets Guru. But no, I'm very grateful for you had me on, Glazer. You're a really knowledgeable guy, and you're a true Jet fan as it is. When Mark Schlereth, was coming at all Jets Nation, you stood up for all of us and gave it right back to him. And you really know your stuff, and I appreciate you for having me on anytime. I had a blast. And I'm just a diehard Jets fan, so I'm gonna give you a fan perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. That's the best you can do, and that's what we all are. I mean, we're all fans. We all want our teams to succeed, and we all maybe have different opinions of how we want it to happen and who we like, but we all want the same outcome. We all want the team to succeed. We all want to be great. We all want to get those Super Bowl rings, and we all want to be able to say the Jets are awesome. So
100%.
I appreciate you. I appreciate all you guys tuning in. Thanks again, like always, for being here for the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. Usually, we're usually half an hour earlier. So check us out live Monday nights at 7 p.m. on YouTube all the time, every Monday. Again, thank you for being here. Appreciate you guys coming out on your Monday nights, and have a great night.
Awesome.